Konnichiwa, konbanwa. This is Road to Nihon, and this is Matt Stuber. This is my kind of bi-monthly, maybe every other month vlog about the process of me moving to Japan. I've been on this journey about a year now, going through university with the intention of transferring to a university in Tokyo, and permanently relocating to the country of Japan. And since my last video, I went to Osaka for a little over 2 weeks, and I stayed primarily at a hostel called E-Hostel. Nice little hostel, really affordable. All the employees are so sweet and very helpful. It's situated in the Shinsaibashi area of Osaka, and close to the famous Glyco Running Man sign, and the Dotonbori, I guess it's called, their Chinatown there, which is an amazing collection of restaurants, izakaya, and it has this canal that runs down the center of pretty much the whole area, where you can see people taking boats, and they do, like little nighttime cruises there and everything. So it's a really beautiful area. If you've never been to Osaka before, I thoroughly recommend the Dotonbori area, and yeah, I mean just Osaka the city in general, but specifically that area, the Shinsaibashi area. It's part of the Namba area as well. So yeah, I'm just getting back. A couple weeks ago, I started my last year of school here in Seattle. I only have 3 quarters to complete, so I'm kind of getting down to the wire here. Within this next month, I'm actually going to be submitting applications for the schools that I'm trying to go to. One of the schools is in Hokkaido, one is in Tokyo, and the other one is on Kyushu. So depending on which school I get into, it's really going to determine where I go in Japan. But I think that for the purpose of getting situated and the easiest kind of entry point for a foreigner, I think I'm going to try to shoot for Tokyo, even though I had previously said in another video that I was going to maybe go to Hokkaido. But I think I'm going to abandon that idea for something more, I wouldn't say easier, but a little bit more attainable. It's Pumpkin here. If you can't see him, he's sitting on my lap right now. He's trying to convince me to feed him some food right now, but he's probably eaten about 45 minutes ago. So yeah, my trip and getting back to that in Osaka, basically I spent the whole time pretending that I lived there for 2 weeks. Like, I went to the same restaurant every day for lunch. I got to know the employees behind the counter. For the whole 2 weeks that I was there, I tried to speak as little English as possible. Like, I primarily spoke Japanese the whole time, which was really useful for me to not lean on my English, which I do in my day-to-day life here. I study every day, but predominantly my day is filled with English speaking because of being in school. I'm not in school in Japanese. Every one of my instructors is speaking English to me. I had completed the full year of Japanese, so I don't hear Japanese at school, but fortunately I speak with 2 different people, 2 of my friends from Japan on a daily basis, so it keeps me in the loop and kind of drives my learning forward, because I'm always talking about different topics and basically fortifying the information that I learned in that year that I studied. So in Osaka, I went, like I said before, I basically went out to lunch at the same restaurant every day. It was a classic, you go in, you pay for your food that you select on a kiosk, and there's a bar that kind of wraps around the whole bottom floor of the restaurant. You just go sit at the bar, you hand in your tickets, and they'll bring you, whatever it is you ordered. Most of the time I'd order udon or tonkatsu and karage, of course, and sometimes I'd get, depending on the time of the day, I'd sit and get a asahi and drink a little bit with my meal, which was nice. Then I'd just go out and take photos. And I'd say the first night that I arrived, I went out to eat with my buddy Reito, and Reito and his girlfriend Jun, who lives in Tokyo. They both met up with me and took me out to a really nice restaurant, predominantly seafood and sushi, more sashimi based, but and it was very kind. They presented me with a pair of chopsticks with my name written in Japanese on them. It was really cute and very sweet and thoughtful, and I tried to pay for dinner, but that was quickly abandoned because Reito insisted on him self-paying for the meal, so I allowed that to happen, and it was very nice, very appreciative. It made me feel welcome immediately. The second night, Reito had to work the next day, so we didn't go out or anything, but I kind of did a little exploring on my own. And that's where I discovered this 80s themed rock bar called 80s Bar Freak, or 80s Rock Bar Freak actually. And I went in and the music was playing that, basically that I love. They were playing Thin Lizzy when I walked in. They had, David Lee Roth, Hanoi Rocks, Motorhead, Ozzy Osbourne posters all over the wall. He had 2 TVs, both playing 80s rock music, videos. It was like stepping back into a time warp. The bartender and owner, Aki Kano, is, I believe, a guitarist in his own band, and he welcomed me. It was so warm, so welcoming. I basically spent the whole night there drinking with him. I ended up drinking shochu with him until like 5 o'clock in the morning. So this experience, we kind of talked about music the whole night, and he, constantly feeding me drinks, and he was drinking shochu himself. So by the end of the night, we both had a pretty thick buzz on, and we were just listening to like Thin Lizzy and what else? Thin Lizzy, and I think it was Motorhead we had on DVD at like 3:30 in the morning. We were drunk, both singing along to it. It was an amazing experience. I left the bar that night, or that morning actually, at 5. I went home and to my hostel, and I went to sleep. Woke up the next day. Surprisingly, I wasn't hungover. I think it's because I don't really drink very often. That I didn't get a hangover, but I woke up the next day kind of late, probably about noon. But if you consider the fact that I went to bed at 5 in the morning, that's really not that late at all. That day, I went out, took some photos, and I always kind of like to geek out and look at, regardless of how I feel about this on a whole, I am very into otaku culture. I like video game stuff. Obviously, I have Super Mario tattoos, anime, manga, and they have this little neighborhood. I think it's called Dendenshi, which is means electric. I guess electricity city or electric city. It's a little area that has literally anything you could imagine. There's a retro video game store called Super Potato that sells like Super Famicom, Commodore 64s, original Nintendos, Virtual Boys, old school guidebooks, all sorts of video game memorabilia, most of it being retro, which is amazing. I could easily go in and spend probably like 3 or 4 hours there, which I did. I think I bought maybe 3 vintage Super Mario guidebooks for Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3. They're all in Japanese, and I like go through and look at them and try to read as much as I can. It leans heavily on kanji, even though I think they were geared for children. I think maybe some of the kanji might be a little advanced for the kids that were reading it back in the day, but that's okay. I'm able to make my way through them, but I would wager they might be worth a little bit of money, but I got them probably each of them for $5 a piece. And considering that the oldest one is from the mid 80s and it's in like almost perfect condition, I figure if I keep, hold on to it for a little while, it might be worth even more, down the road at some point. But so yeah, I spent a day kind of exploring that area, and then basically the rest of my time I just, rinse, wash, and repeat. I went out with Raito a couple more times, and we got drinks most of the time. I also went back to the 80s rock bar a couple more times, and then at the end of the 2-week period, I humbly left. In order to save money on this trip, basically, I booked a $400 round trip flight, which I'm not going to reveal my sources, but I got $400 round trip flight to Narita from SeaTac Airport here in Seattle. And I arrived at Narita, and then I went to Shinjuku, where I took a coach bus, a 10-hour overnight coach bus to Osaka, and basically the coach bus stops every 3 hours in the middle of the night, and you're in these really small seats. Like I have a wider shoulder span than a lot of people in that part of the world, so I was like crunched up like this most of the coach. And at one point, the passenger next to me was like asleep on my shoulder, and it was so cute. He was asleep, and I didn't want to like wake him up, so I just grinned and bared it. Basically, I just let this guy he kind of crouched out on my shoulder, and he'd wake up every time like we'd hit a rest stop, and I would go in and get Suntory Boss can of coffee. And I'd fire that down because I couldn't really sleep. For some reason, I couldn't sleep on this. It could have had to do with the fact that I was like compressed against the window with a guy sleeping on my shoulder. But whatever the case, I was probably up the 10 hours. I was probably up for about maybe 85% of the time. And so when I finally arrived at Osaka, I had like 4 hours to kill until I could check into my hostel. So basically, on the way back, I had a similar setup. I was running kind of low on cash on my way out, and I bought a bus ticket like within like 4 days of my departure time, because I was like, I'm getting low on cash. Like, worst case scenario, I get my bus ticket paid for. I already have my round trip ticket back. Like, there's no chance I'm going to run out of money and get stuck in Japan, even though that would be probably the best case scenario for me. I would enjoy that, but I want to go there the right way through school and be able to get a visa and everything, and overstaying my tourist visa there would not be good. So I got my bus ticket all lined up. On the way back, I had to check out of my hostel at 11 in the morning. The bus didn't leave until 11 at night from the train station in Osaka, Umeda, and at Umeda, I waited probably about 7 hours, just chilling, sitting there. My phone died like halfway through. I had like 3 huge backpacks with me. I wasn't about to abandon them or try to stick them in a locker because it just wouldn't work out logistically at that point in the day. And so I ended up sitting there for hours and hours. And then I finally went to the little bus depot to catch my bus. 10 hours back to Tokyo. And when I arrived in Tokyo, I had to take, because I was kind of low on funds, I had to take all local trains from Shinjuku to Narita. And then when I finally arrived at Narita, my flight was at 6 in the afternoon. So when I got to Narita, it was about 11 in the morning. So I had another 7 hours to wait at Narita for my flight to leave. And then finally 6 o'clock rolls around. I take my flight. The plane ride itself is about 7 or 8 hours. So I'm looking at like about 24 hours worth of travel by the time I finally get back to Seattle. I get back to Seattle, and it's kind of a depressing moment, because for me, being in Seattle is depressing. I love the school. I love what I'm doing here. My job, my part-time job. gives me enough money to survive and buy cool camera gear. But at the end of the day, it's just not really what I'm into. Obviously, I'm leaving. So it was like getting back to the seventh circle of hell. Like the day I got back, it seemed like it was the start of the crushing darkness that overtakes Seattle in the winter, where you see like sunlight maybe once every like 2 weeks. That must have something to do with like why everyone is so depressed here in the winter, or at least transplants like myself. I've met, there are weird freaks of nature that live here that thrive in the darkness and love the rain, but I don't. That's not me. So, but I got back, and then I had about 2 weeks, the last couple weeks, where I got a brilliant new camera. I got the Sony A7R IV, which is amazing. This is my first video on it, actually, and I started school again, which I had mentioned previously. So I'm about a week and a half into my third to last quarter, and I'm going to try to be a little more frequent with my updates because I have this boss new camera, even though the one I had before, the Sony Alpha A7R III, was amazing at video. I have to make a marked effort to be more consistent because I think that once I finally get over to Japan, I'm going to try to do, a video once a week, because everything's going to be so new and exciting. There's going to be so many things for me to experience that I'd like to share. So look forward to in the future me doing like an uptick in video production. I'm not, truth be told, I'm a stills photographer. I'm not incredibly experienced in video, but it's fun learning, and I'm going to just keep plugging away at it. But anyways, I'm going to get going because I have some homework to do. I also have to study some Japanese for a little while. So, sayonara, and I will see you maybe next week. Thanks, guys.